Do you have any like tips or little secrets there in your pocket that you could share between, for people to practice, for anybody to practice on the day in, day out?
Yeah, before I suggest it, I want to mention that a lot of the techniques that might work for one person might not for another. I myself sometimes have suggested things that I think that would never work for me, and that's fine. I think that we know ourselves, and if something doesn't work, that's fine. But also sometimes we're afraid to try things, and maybe giving it a chance can be helpful too. This is one of the things that when I first started learning to be a counselor, I thought this was so fluffy, and it was one of those things that I thought, like typical counselor suggestion, it's totally not going to work. But the amount of times I've seen it help clients, but also myself in high stress situations, I can't help but accept the fact that it does work sometimes.
Right.
So one thing that I really like to do with people, if they call me in crisis or if they're feeling really distressed when they come in, I'll teach it to them and then they can use it in their own lives, whether it's at home or at work. So let's say something happened to trigger some kind of distress. Maybe there was some kind of interpersonal conflict. They're feeling really overwhelmed by emotions and feelings. Maybe they're angry and they want to leave, or maybe they're panicked and feeling fearful. What happens when we feel that way is the center of our brain that takes over is the one in the back. Mm-hmm. It's the one responsible for keeping us safe, survival, and fear kicks in. So we're not thinking straight.
Yeah.
When that center of our brain kicks in, we're not using the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational thinking, planning, executing decisions. That's hard sometimes for people to hear when they're in the moment because it sounds like you're talking down to them. But the fact is that you can't think straight, so you can't plan right now.
Yeah.
So in order to get this center not being in charge, to tell it basically like, we don't need you in this moment, thanks for all of your work, but we don't need you right now, can be to get the person, of course, to do the breathing, which lots of people, including myself, think, that's not going to do it, but to start it with the breathing. So I might encourage them to close their eyes if they feel safe to do so, to take a deep breath slowly in. You might count to 4 as you're breathing in, hold it for 4, and then breathe out 4. I might do that with them 4 or 5 times. Practice just getting a second to just breathe and let your body calm down. When we slowly breathe, we tell our nervous system it's okay to relax right now. Our heart rate goes down, the adrenaline slows down. We can start to kind of feel our bodies again. As they're breathing, I might invite them, if they're feeling like it's something they can try, to check in with all 5 senses. Mm-hmm. And how long each person does it depends on their capacity at the time or how stressed out they are. So I might invite them to, think about one thing that you can see right now in the room and describe it. And, I've had lots of clients talk about this very colorful rug, mm-hmm. or the texture on my lamp or things like that. Once you start looking and thinking critically about the stuff that's around you, you're not in fear anymore because you're using the other centers of your brain. You're activating the parts that are required to think. That I might say, think about something that you can touch, and they often touch something that's rough.
Right.
Lots of touching of this, lots of touching of the textures of things. Yeah. I might ask them, what does...
You want to touch that.
Of course.
Yeah.
And once you are invited to, you're in that now.
Yeah.
So now I might say, what does that touch remind you of? I hear lots of things like, my grandmother had a blanket that felt like this, or, my childhood home, we had a chair that felt this way.
Right.
And so now they're thinking differently. They're not in fear centers usually. So then something you can smell, often there's a laugh there because there's some kind of smell in the room. And the same thing with taste, like maybe there's coffee breath, or I just had a smoke before I came in. The client might say, I can taste the cigarettes.
Yeah.
And so again, we're laughing now, so we're not thinking about the stressful thing. Right. There's one more of sound. And of course, there's usually a rainmaker on. They might hear the traffic, or if the window's open, the breeze, the sound of my voice. So automatically I can start seeing them kind of come down. Then I might invite them again to try the breathing. And then as they do the breathing, I'll ask, like, can you feel any difference? What are you feeling right now? What's your heart rate like? And usually when the person starts to observe that they feel different, then they get a sense of, oh, I have control over, maybe not the circumstance that caused the distress, but I do have some control over how my nervous system responds to the distress. It could take longer than that, but I've seen so many clients kind of come down from the crisis situation and then they almost laugh because this is back in charge then.
Right.
And they're like, oh my gosh, that was so silly. But it wasn't.
It wasn't, yeah. But
it was
yeah.
very serious at the time. But now they're thinking straight and they're like, I don't know why I was even so upset. But it was only because they were able to calm their nervous system themselves and tell the fear centers of the brain that we're not in any kind of crisis and we're not under threat. Let's just take a minute, and then we can make a decision about what to do after.
Right.
So that's one thing I might suggest.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to practice that.
It helps me.
Yeah.
Even just like people know now, I might close my eyes and start touching things. Like,
she's doing one.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
It helps.
Really good.
And it can be helpful once you start practicing to have things around you that have nice textures or whatever the sensation is that soothes you, whether it's a smell or taste or touch or whatever, to have that nearby if you know you might need it in a time of distress.